Welcome to the Prepped and Polished podcast, the podcast that empowers you to take control of your education, featuring weekly interviews with influencers in the world of education, as well as tutoring tips, lessons, and updates.
Hi everyone. Welcome to another Tutoring Tips episode of the Prepped and Polished podcast. It's your host, Terri Karol of Prepped and Polished. Please be sure to check out our website, www.preppedandpolished.com, for more info. And on our website, be sure to sign up for our free SAT ebook, 13 SAT Tips You Cannot Live Without. You can submit a question during the show or after to radio@preppedandpolished.com. We love hearing from you. Let's get right to it. The secondary school admission test, or SSAT, is the required entrance exam at some of the best independent schools in the world. It's really not an achievement test. Its primary purpose is to yield a reliable, common measure of student ability and a basis for comparison by which students with diverse experiences may be evaluated. The most frequent question that parents and students ask about the SSAT, or secondary school admission test, is, what's considered a good score? In order to answer that, it's helpful to first understand how the SSAT is scored. So let me give you a little background on that. The SSAT Raw Scores for the middle level, which tests grades 5 through 7, and the upper level, which tests grades 8 through 11, is determined by subtracting a percentage of wrong answers from number of right answers. A student receives 1 point for every correct answer, and a student loses a quarter point. There's minus a quarter point for each incorrect answer, and there's no points lost if a student simply skips a question. It's a little different for the elementary level. Those are students applying to 4th or 5th grade. There's no penalty for incorrect answers, so students should answer every question and certainly guess if unsure. The student's raw score is then converted to a scaled score, and that's for each section: verbal, reading, and quantitative or math. But the scaled score ranges for each level vary. For the upper level, the scaled score range is 500 to 800. The middle level, the scaled score range is 440 to 710, and the elementary scaled score range is 300 to 600. The score report will also show an overall score, and that's a combination of the verbal, reading, and quantitative or math. Students will also receive a percentile score, and that falls between 1 and 99%. That compares a student's test scores with those of other test takers of the same grade and gender from the past 3 years. It's important to note that for younger students at the lower end of the middle level and upper level, some content is going to be difficult to answer. But the test is designed for that. The scaled scores and percentiles take into account a student's age and gender. So basically the scores are not harmed by the fact that some of the questions are difficult, or perhaps even concepts that the students at the lower end of the middle level or upper level haven't had yet. Well, now we can address what is a good score on the SSAT. Now that you have some background about the scoring, keep in mind that a good or worthy admission test question is only answered correctly 50% of the time. That's how they're designed, because the overall difficulty level of the SSAT is designed to be at 50%. The reason for this is that the SSAT is supposed to be difficult so that it's a means of differentiating between and among candidates, and it will reveal or show individual strengths as they pertain to the selective school curriculum and programs at a particular school. Admissions officers typically focus on the SSAT scaled score. That's the most reliable and consistent measure over time. And they also focus on the SSAT percentile. That's valuable in comparing a student's performance to others in that testing year. But you have to realize that each school weighs test scores differently according to its own standards and requirements. It's really just one piece used in the decision-making process. And transcripts, along with teacher recommendations, are very important as well. It's really the whole package. The bottom line is that parents should speak to the admissions staff at a school to determine if a student's score is good, which really means considered within the school's acceptable test score range. That's really the bottom line. Sometimes parents and students are confused and kind of wonder whether students should take the SSAT multiple times in their quest for a good score. And I can tell you that typically scores on multiple SSATs fall within the range on the student's score report. However, practicing with an experienced tutor to learn pacing strategies and the format of the test and strategies for each section, along with serious application to regular school studies and reading outside of the classroom to increase vocabulary, all contribute to boosting a student's SSAT score. Well, I hope this information helped you and answered your questions about what is a good score on the SSAT. This wraps up our show, episode 77, What is a Good Score on the SSAT? Please join us for episode 78 with Executive Function Coach Jackie Stachel. To access all of our podcast episodes, go to www.preppedandpolished.com/podcast. Thanks for joining us on the Prepped and Polished podcast. Now go out there and take control of your education.
You've been listening to the Prepped and Polished podcast. For more information, check out preppedandpolished.com. Also, you can follow us on Facebook and Twitter. Thanks for listening. Class dismissed.